My name's Stuart, and this is what I consider a very beautiful BSA Y13 motorcycle. The purpose of this video is I'm told that they were only made for about 3 years. There weren't a lot made in the first place, and I've read things that are anything from 12 to 15 of these left in the world. I'd actually like to be a bit more definite about that, so what I'm hoping is at the end of this video, which should be about not just the bike but also riding the bike, but I would like to know how many there are out there. So I'm asking you, if you have one of these beautiful machines and you're interested in letting me know so I can catalogue it, that would be great. Or even if you know of one in a museum which is close to you, even if you could send me a picture of that and tell me what museum it's in. What I'd like to end up with is, at the end of the day, is to have a more precise idea of how many of these beautiful machines actually still exist in the world today. I think this is a beautiful motorcycle, but I never bought it just to start my own museum, or that I wanted to get up in the morning and go to my shed and look at my beautiful bike. This was always intended to be a bicycle that you could take on the road. I'm a member of a classic motorcycle club, and this was always my intention to ride this on club events. And when I bought it, I have to admit, the engine was running, the wheels were turning, the gears worked, but quite honestly, it was an absolute pig. It was a dreadful motorcycle to ride. There were so many things on there that didn't work properly that it was quite stressful. But fortunately, I have a very good friend who cut his teeth on his own bike, which is a 1937 Panther. So it's the same era as this motorcycle. So a lot of the technology is similar. And so he's been an absolute godsend to me. So what I'd like to do is to introduce you to my prime mechanic, the guru of the motorcycle, my friend Vince. So let's do this in a sort of a logical fashion, Vince. Let's do the front wheel and the forks, then we'll do the engine, and then we'll do the back wheel. So we'll just move back on the type of things that we've been doing to turn this from a pig to something which is now really, really quite comfortable to ride. Do you want to just tell us what we've actually done on the front section, the wheel, the forks, all of that?
On the front wheel, we found that the tyres needed replacing, fair enough. We didn't know what the brakes were like, so we ripped the front out and had a look in there, relined the brakes, replaced the bearings, and found a little problem with the speedo, and basically that's all we had to do there to get it right. It took time and patience, but that's what we did.
Okay, so what about the top end and the controls? We did some stuff up there as well.
When we got to the controls on the handlebars, they're not the conventional controls that you have today. This has got a scroll inside, and the scroll inside here to activate the throttle cable was well worn. On the other one, on the other side, it has a scroll inside there to operate your advance and retard. That was well worn. That all had to be remanufactured and fitted. And the scrolls were made up by a friend of Stuart's, John, a clever man with that sort of stuff. And so after much patience and perseverance, then we got those things working correctly.
Now we come on to the bit that I think we almost lost friendships on. Not just for me, but my friend John, who Vince had probably mentioned before, are both very good mechanical people. And I think they argued continuously for about 3 weeks on the clutch mechanism. So anyway, Vince is going to talk us through this. There was a number of issues on here, which is pedantic nature. You don't mind me saying that, do you?
Not at all. Someone's got to be pedantic.
Some issues in here which I was being horrified by. But anyway, Vince, talk us through all the oddments that went on in this engine to make it what it is now.
Well, it wouldn't start easily. It didn't run nicely. It made a hell of a lot of noise, backfiring, frightening the possums out of the shed. And so what we had to do was figure out where these things were coming from. A lot of it was coming from here, this manifold that goes between the two cylinders. The air was leaking in through here because it was fitted badly. And it's a pig of a thing to fit, but it takes patience and perseverance, and we got that right. Copper piping, this ran up through here, which was the wrong layer. We picked that up you had a documentary photograph,
Yes.
sales photograph.
Yep.
So we picked a lot of that stuff up from original photos and reran the tubes where they should be. Then we found, looking down the board just to see what things were like, remember?
I remember.
We
I remember.
we saw a little mark on the side of the bore and we thought, well, or I thought, don't like that, don't quite know what it is, better find out. So much to Stuart's horror, I took the barrels off and we discovered some other things.
Yes,
As Richard would say, more collateral damage.
exactly.
But what we did with that was we mastered that, put it all back together. Incidentally, the motor had been recently rebored, new 40 thou pistons, rings, beautiful. And the bottom end was good. We didn't take all this to pieces, but feeling and measuring, that was good. The only problem was this section here had been broken, cracked and welded,
So that's the rocker cover.
the rocker cover for
Yep.
this rear cylinder.
Yes, for the
front
rear.
one was great.
Yep.
So that again, we presented that to John, and without any argument, we left him on his own. So
Yes.
there
Oh,
was
that's
no
best.
debate.
Always best.
And he did a wonderful job on that, and so I was able to put it back together again without any oil leaks. And finally, that was about all we had to do to the engine. Yes.
So tell us quickly about the clutch.
Oh, the clutch. The clutch itself, the plates, the friction plates and the non-friction plates were in very good condition. But the trouble with the clutch was the mechanisms that run these levers here and the rod that goes through were worn out, let's say worn out. So they had to be remeasured, made to the specifications that we needed, and when we did all that, then we got a nicely operating clutch.
And we're still friends.
And we're still friends.
Good.
That's been going on for a long time now.
That's true.
Stuart had been on a ride, a club ride, and his friend Richard and my friend Richard were following back, and we noticed that the back wheel was moving. So Stuart got home, and then it was mentioned and discussed in diplomatic terms that his bike wasn't as good as he thought it was. However, then we pulled the back wheel out and we found the reason. The dowels that hold the brake drum on, which also hold the sprocket are part of the sprocket for the chain, and the bearings inside there, which are adjustable tapered bearings, they were all worn. So we pulled it out, had a look at it, assessed the problem, handed it on to our dear friend John again, who made up a jig for drilling and on the right PCD, and we replaced the Timken taper bearings with deep groove roller bearings.
I bet you can't say that when you're drunk.
And all the adjustments are still there if you want to go back to taper bearings.
Yes.
And lined everything up and put it back together.
So now we have oversized dowels
Yes.
because of the wear in
That's
the.
right. Oversized dowels, fitted and
I know it rides
beautiful.
on wheels which are
And
round.
new tyre as the front,
Yes.
and balanced, and it's excellent.
Okay.
And we got the brakes relined,
Yes.
so all this back end here is beautiful.
Good.
And talking about the back end, then we had to do some work on the lining up of the exhaust pipes to get them in line. We had to let it in a little bit. They were a bit too long from the last replacement, and all the brackets had to be modified to bring it into some sort of a line so that it looks good.
So that's basically most of the stuff that was done to actually make this a riding machine, which was always what it was supposed to be. I am now very happy with the way that this actually rides. Going back to my theme, that this was a bike to ride, to be on the roads, there's a few things that we've done to, not just for better operation, but for rideability, if you like. So the first thing is then we've put in indicators, which I've tried to keep as, you know, so you can't really see them. The purists will tell me you shouldn't have indicators. They weren't with indicators and therefore you don't need them. I actually want this on the road and I want it to be safe. I've also put a backlight on there. And then here, we've redone the internals of the carburetor because that was not working really well. And we've put a bell mouth on there instead of the old military, big military black filter thing that was on there. We think that that looks a bit neater. The other thing we've done is we've got a modification to the magneto here. There's a company in England that do this sort of stuff. And what this is about is that it allows me to isolate my oil supply to the engine because I don't want wet sumping. But it also means I can't start the engine unless I switch this off. So I'll show you that on the other side. So if we can just move around. There's my nice little stoplight, which means people know I'm braking. These are my indicators, so people know that I'm turning. And then if you come round to here, this little switch here is my isolator. That isolates my main oil from the oil supply. And if I switch that to on, now I can start the engine. When I switch it off, it's got a little switch in here which goes to the magneto, which gives me isolation. So it's a bit of a safety switch as well. So that's basically the bike. It's now a good riding machine, which I'll show you a little bit later when we go onto some of our West Australian roads, and you can get a flavour for West Australia as well as how this bike performs. So I look forward to seeing you on the road. Blows your mind, but you don't care. It's a shame. Waking up to kingdom come. Of everyone else. I am the last of the natural ones alive. Let yourself go and have some fun.